Buenos dias, Barcelona, and welcome to VMworld Europe in our Day 2 general session. It's great to see so many people here, and I'd like to start by thanking our sponsors, our customers, our vast ecosystem, and our employees for making VMworld Europe another absolutely spectacular event. And this event is a tremendous event, but it's not just a great event for VMware, it's actually a great event for our entire IT industry. And with more than 8,500 people in attendance this year, it is, or may be, one of the largest IT infrastructure events in Europe over the last few years. But 10 years ago, at our first VMworld event, we had all of 1,400 people with us. And I happened to be there, and I can tell you at the time, we at VMware thought we were literally on top of the world. We had 1,400 people at our user conference. Well, we weren't quite on top of the world, but we did at that time make some very bold and ambitious claims to the IT of the past. And while collectively we're not quite at virtualizing the entire data center, we have actually come quite a long way. And that's thanks to you, our customers, and our partners. And because we've done along with Martine, and 3 very powerful global customers, eBay, GE, and Citi, announced proud to have the single largest cloud management launch and refresh in our company's history yesterday. And all of this was done with you in mind. The only way to reduce or remove the amount of friction between the consumers of IT and the producers of IT is through software. And with this new software, a new level of trust and collaboration will evolve. And through that new level of trust and collaboration, companies will be able to gain access to their customers and serve their customers in a very different way. Employees will be able to get access to applications and desktops through any device in a very secure manner. And a new level of business agility will emerge, allowing all of you to be more competitive innovation officers. At the same time, the line of business never, and I mean never, stops asking for more. Because they are also...
Carl, my favorite line of business owner. What are the insane demands you have for us in IT today?
Wow. Okay, let's start over. Kit, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. So Kit, let me first explain who I am. I'm a very technical business leader. And I think I understand technology quite well. And every time I come to you in IT, I ask for more and more. And you're always telling me, you know, Carl, I got everything under control.
Well, this is easy. Yeah, we can handle it, okay?
A lot of other constituents, and they all need things from IT, and they need them now. But the most important thing is that we have to keep the lights on. We have to keep all of our business-critical applications up and running. That's a really high bar, and there is a lot of complexity there.
So Kit, I understand that, but at the end of the day, I think you know me, and it's all about getting my applications to market faster, and I want them right here, right now.
Of course you do.
And is there anything you can do to help me get these applications in the market faster?
Yeah, we definitely can. I think we do have a solution that can solve both of our needs. Your ability to get applications to market more quickly, and my need for control to keep our business-critical applications running. So let's check out a demo.
Okay, great.
So here we are in vCloud Automation Center. Now this is the place where you as an application owner can go to see all the different applications and services that we have within our data center.
So I see this is a portal that I, as a line of business owner or developer, go to bring an application to market. And I also see there's different types of infrastructure services that I can leverage here. A private cloud, a public cloud, and many others.
Right. The idea is to be completely comprehensive. We understand that your data center is very heterogeneous and that you have a lot of different types of infrastructure in there. So the point here is that this is one place where you can go provision anything that you want to.
Now I also see there's an option here if we wanted to deploy an application on OpenStack. Does VMware integrate into OpenStack, and can you really provision through this tool?
It does, yeah. Again, the point here is to support everything, including even OpenStack. And we know a lot of...
It requires low latency because it's highly transactional, and I'm confident there's a lot of people that's going to want access to my application.
Obviously, I'm sure it's going to be very...
So can we go ahead and deploy it, or can I go ahead and deploy it?
Yeah, we can. So I think you're talking about your Project Vulkan application.
That's it. Project Vulkan's amazing.
Okay. So you can see here we have a few different options of where to provision Vulkan. We can provision it on vSphere in the private data center. We can provision in the hybrid cloud. We even have an option for EC2 out in the public cloud. Which one would you like?
In this case, I'd like to deploy it in a private cloud on vSphere.
Okay. So let's drill into that. Now what you see here is a little bit of detail about the application. But I know something you're thinking, and that's how much does it cost?
Always. I'm always interested in cost because a lot of times I get bills from you at the end of the week, month, or quarter saying, hey, you need more infrastructure, here's an additional bill. I want to know up front what I'm paying.
Yeah, we like to do that too.
Yeah, I know.
Keeps you on your toes. It's fun. So now, if there is no guesswork to it, we can take all the guesswork out. Let's go check out the cost for running this application. So we're looking here at our IT Business Management Suite product. This is something that Pat announced yesterday. And so as you can see, we can see the cost for running this application on a variety of different infrastructures, both your private data center as well as a couple of different public clouds.
Now I see in this case it says it's cheaper to run in a private cloud. Is that always the case, Kit?
That's a good question. It's not always the case. The reality is that there are a lot of different factors that go into determining the cost of running an application. But the point here is that this takes all the guesswork out of it. Now you can see one number, and you're no longer unsure of what it's going to cost.
Okay, but how do I know what that $380 comprises of?
Well, we can break that down for you. So you see on the left-hand side, we actually break it down on a per VM basis. And even within that, you can see a cost broken down on the VM of where your costs are going for, say, storage and labor and maintenance.
Okay, that's something I've never seen before. So you can tell me how much my software costs were and my infrastructure costs to run this application.
Right, it's all there for you.
That's really powerful, Kit.
So are you okay with going with the private cloud?
I want to go with the private cloud. Can we deploy that app?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go back to our catalog, and let's submit a request. Now when we submit the request, we need to put in a couple of pieces of information. First of all, a name, but now we get some more interesting choices. Okay? These are things in IT that we've allowed you to choose from. So in particular here, database storage. We've given you a choice of 3 different tiers, bronze, silver, or gold. And let me guess, you want gold.
Actually, I want silver because I'm always nervous about storage costs. So in this case, let's pick silver. Yeah.
It's shocking.
I'm provision. It's my app. That's what I want.
You don't want gold? Okay. Well, we'll go silver with it then. Now another option, auto-scale. Auto-scale is a really cool feature of vCloud Automation Center. It will monitor your application. And if it detects your application is under increased load, it will automatically fork off an additional instance of that application to handle that load.
So I definitely want to choose that option because this is going to be a powerful application and everyone's going to want access to it. So this thing's going to need scale-out capabilities.
Of course, yeah. Let's do it. Check it. And then we can select the maximum number of additional instances to create. We'll select 7, and we can submit the request. Now what you've seen along the way here is that Carl's been doing all this by himself. We in IT haven't been in the loop. But the point here is that we still have control. We have control through policy. So we specified the different applications and infrastructures that Carl saw when he first logged in. We had control over the different types of storage tiers that Carl could choose from. And now we have yet another point of control. Because all we've done is submitted a request. The actual provisioning hasn't occurred yet. What happens is the request has to be approved first. And so we can either automatically approve it, or we can make it a manual approval in certain cases, say if you're trying to provision tens or hundreds of VMs. Now in this case, it actually was an automatic approval because just a few VMs, a small application. So while I've been talking, this application has actually been automatically provisioned for us. So we can go check it out.
Let's check out the health of that application.
So we see all the different VMs here. We can drill into one of them to look at the health.
And there you go. There's my application. Green means healthy.
We have to keep it simple for your business, guys.
Oh, that's good, Kit. That's really good. So let's just take a step back, Kit, and look at what we just saw in our first demo. So first and foremost, I, as a line of business owner or a developer, actually have access to a self-service portal to implement my application and its infrastructure, and I had transparency into the pricing of that application.
Right, and that's great for you guys on the business side, but for us in IT, the thing that we got is governance. Governance equals control. It allows us to ensure that all our business critical applications stay up and running, even while you're going off and provisioning all the new apps that you want. And it's automation that brings self-service and governance together. Because with automation, we get the best of both worlds. You guys get the freedom that you want, while we in IT get the control that we need.
That's great, Kit. That was really exciting. It was quite impressive to see that you actually, with a couple clicks, could provision an entire application and its infrastructure. But before we dive into that a little further, let's take a step back and focus on the cost and to run applications in this environment. And you showed a bunch of different data on the cost to run my application. How do I know that the data is accurate and where it came from and how it was actually calculated?
You don't trust it? You think we're overcharging you or something?
You've been known to do that in the past, Kit, yes.
Look, the point is that this is real data and I can prove it to you. Let's show another demo to check it out.
Let's see another one.
Okay, so we're back here in the IT Business Management Suite product. We're accessing it through vCloud Automation Center. Now, this is the same product that you just used to look at the cost for your application. But what I look at now is I see the cost of my entire data center. I can see that broken down by the different components in there. How much am I paying for storage? How much am I paying for OS licensing? I can see it all here. I can also look at my costs month to month. How much does it cost per VM to run my data center on a month-to-month basis? Is it going up? Is it going down? Now I know. And this is really empowering for me as an IT admin. Because previously, if the CFO would ask me, how much does our data center cost? I didn't have a good answer. Now I do. But better than that, I can actually give him a detailed bill, just like you would get from a public cloud vendor. But better than that, if he wants even more detail, I can actually give him a live dashboard right here in the product, so he can get all the information that he wants.
So Kit, this is extremely powerful because now we have transparency in pricing, but it's not just for IT or the line of business. There's actually a third party we can now bring in this to get access to this tool, and that's the CFO in his or her organization. So we now have transparency in pricing across IT, the line of business, and the finance organization. And the finance organization has historically always challenged us on the cost of IT, but now we can look at the same dashboard to get a better understanding of the cost to run our infrastructure.
Yeah, hopefully it should make our meetings a bit more easy. We don't have to have all the shouting matches that we usually have.
That's great. So Kit, can we drill down and see how much it costs for my department, in this case my development organization, and how much it is to run each of the applications?
Definitely. You notice on the right-hand side here that I can see a breakdown by department. So let's take a look at your development group department. So now what we see here is all the different applications that you guys have provisioned. As a matter of fact, at the top there, we can see Project Vulkan, the application we just provisioned. And just like you saw the cost for it when you were provisioning it, I see the exact same cost here.
That's great. So there's Project Vulkan, $380, I shouldn't say dollars, euros. 380 euros to run that application, which is exactly what I saw when I deployed it.
Right.
That's really exciting, Kit. So now transparency and pricing for everybody.
Yeah, we can actually argue about facts rather than just opinions, which I know you have a lot of.
Okay, so let's see what we do. Let's just have a few takeaways. So number one, we see seamless cost visibility for IT, businesses, and I said earlier, finance as well for the first time. We see detailed data to understand the trade-offs we're going to make around infrastructure versus the application and potentially the SLA of that application. And we now have the ability to effectively, and probably for the first time, manage IT as a business. That was great, Kit. Thanks.
Do you trust the data now, Carl?
I'm definitely feeling a lot better after that little demo. That's great. So let's take a step back even further, because as I said earlier, I was quite impressed that in a couple clicks you were able to deploy an application. Can you go into that a little bit more detail and show me how it actually occurred?
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on here, so let's drill into another demo to see exactly what happened. Now, what we're looking at here is vCloud Application Director, and what we've done is rewound the clock to right after we submitted our request for this application. That request, as I said, was automatically approved, and so it got sent over here to actually have it be provisioned. So let's drill into this application, okay? Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out. The first of which is that it's very hard to stand up a modern application. These things have 20 or 30 different components. You got to figure out how to connect the networking, what the dependencies are, what order to power them on, the configuration options, so on and so forth. The point here is that vCloud Application Director takes care of all that for you. It'll create an execution plan and then automatically stand up that application. It's really powerful.
That's great.
So what exactly is this application? I know you know.
I built it.
But we don't. So let's take a look. You see here the blueprint for the application. This defines the application. And when I say application, by the way, I don't mean just the V app. This is a lot more powerful. This is the end-to-end definition, full definition for an application. I know about all the different tiers, all the different VMs, all the different components, and all their dependencies. And it's all represented here graphically.
So, Kit, are you saying when you did this, you deployed not just a V app, but a multi-tiered application through App Director?
I didn't. You guys did.
Oh, that's right. I did this.
Yeah.
This is truly seamless. It's all automated for me.
Yeah, it makes it easy for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can bring more applications to market really quickly this way. But there's something else I want to point out here. It's something that you don't see. Because what you don't see is any infrastructure. We're just defining the application, and that's separate from the infrastructure. Now, you know that, typically speaking, when you're deploying applications, you have to customize them for the infrastructure that they're running on. That's a lot of manual work. Now that can be done automatically. Because vCloud Application Director understands how to provision to different types of clouds, vSphere, EC2, what have you. And exactly that's what you saw in our service catalog. You had options of where to provision Project Vulkan.
That's great. So you're telling me now the application is decoupled from the infrastructure. That's why this happens so quickly.
Yep.
That's
Makes it
great.
easy.
That's very good. So let's look at a couple takeaways from this last demo. So first, as we just said, we're able to now streamline application provisioning because it's all automated and it's self-service for me. We decouple the application from the infrastructure, and because it's all automated, we can reduce the steps and the costs associated with deploying this application, and there's a lot less human intervention, which means there will be a lot less errors.
And that's a big thing for IT, actually, because it's typically speaking when you're standing up new applications that these errors are induced. You make a mistake in a firewall rule. That can bring down a business-critical app that's been up and running for quite a while. So by removing the human error component, by automating all this, we can keep our business-critical applications up and running.
That's great, Kit. So I'm really impressed. I understand the cost associated with deploying an application in the infrastructure, and I understand that through a self-service portal, in a couple clicks, I can actually provision my own applications. But I know there's a lot more to provisioning an application, and it requires infrastructure. It requires things like networking and storage. And when it comes to networking, I actually at times believe networking slows down the application provisioning process, and this is why. Because today, I know it's very easy to provision a virtual machine, and we can literally do this in minutes, and some of you have tools and you've automated it that can be done in seconds. But when we want to provision networking services like Layer 2 through 7 network services, we have to take that virtual machine and we have to pass it down the assembly line known as conventional networking configuration. We got to go to someone to provision a switch. We got to provision a router. We got to implement security. We may even have to implement a load balancer in front of it. This is not automated, Kit. So are you telling me there's a way now that we can deploy that application, get all of these networking services at the same time?
There is. But let's talk about why this is so hard. Why does it take days today? What's the fundamental problem here? The fundamental issue is that the virtual machine is still tied to the physical network hardware. If you think back to before compute virtualization, we had the same issue going on with applications and physical machines. If you want to stand up a new application, you have to get the physical machine already. There's a lot of manual work to configure that thing. And we have the exact same problem with networking, so we had to break that chain.
Yeah, Pat talked about that yesterday, but he also talked about this powerful new platform called NSX. So how does NSX change all of this?
Okay, so what is NSX? Well, first it starts off using your existing physical network hardware. There's no need to get anything new. There's no rip and replace. You can use what you have there today, even without any configuration changes. What we do is we layer on NSX on top of that. And NSX is implemented in software and implements a network hypervisor. So just like we saw with the compute hypervisor with ESX, it separated the application from the physical machine underneath. We see the same thing with the network hypervisor. It separates the VM from the physical network underlying it. And what does it create? Well, it creates a virtual network that has all the properties of physical networks. Things like L2 switching, L3 routing, firewalling, load balancing. But the best part is that it ties these services to the life cycle of an application or virtual machine. So when an application is created, these services are automatically created. When it's modified, the services are modified. And when the application is retired, those services are automatically retired.
So now, after you create a virtual machine, all the networking services remain with the virtual machine, and if it moves, it actually follows it.
Automatically.
Wow, can we see this in a live action in a demo form?
Yeah, let's check out a demo. So we're here in the vSphere web client, and again, if we think back to after vCloud Application Director ran, we were starting to configure the virtual machine, vCloud Automation Center also talked to NSX to start provisioning, switching, routing, firewall, and load balancing. Now we're sitting here looking at the vSphere web client, and some VI admins at the console, but he's not doing anything. He's just sitting there watching all these tasks fly by. That's because all this was automated. NSX did this automatically without needing any human intervention.
So the same interface all of these folks use today to provision virtual machines is actually now provisioning all the networking services.
That's exactly right.
Wow. That's why Pat said yesterday, all of these people are already experienced, if you will, in network provisioning.
Yeah, you can leverage those existing skills and knowledge.
That's great.
So, a lot of stuff just happened here, and it's kind of hard to tell, all these things flew by, all these tasks are happening. So let's take a second to go back to some slides to understand what just occurred. Now, what we have here is a 3-tier application. So what networking does this app need? Well, first, it needs switching, so that the VMs within a tier can talk to each other. Then it needs routing, so the different tiers can talk to each other, and so that the application can talk to the outside world. And then you also need firewall, of course, because once you talk to the outside world, you've got security problems. And since this application is going to be so awesome, obviously, of course, you need load balancing to scale it out.
So when you provision this multi-tier application, there was all these dependencies it needed from the network. That all happened simultaneously.
Happened automatically.
So Kit, this seems way too good to be true. Can we take a step back and take a little deeper look at NSX and how all of this works?
Yeah, definitely. Let's drill into the next level. So before I describe how NSX works, it's instructive to understand how conventional networking works today. So let's start with switching. Now, when I create an application tier, what I actually have to do is go and manually configure the different physical switches so that that application tier can talk to within itself, the different VMs.
So every time you create that virtual machine, you have to provision or configure those switches that lit up there in orange.
Right. It's a lot of manual work. And this is why it takes days. But I know you guys think we're sandbagging here in IT, but this actually is a lot of work.
So what happens if I want to add another virtual machine?
Well, it's a potentially different set of physical switches that you have to go and configure.
Okay, so
and you can see how much work this is, right?
That's a lot of work. So that's what slows down the application deployment.
Right, and it's a lot of manual effort as well, and there's a lot of errors that can get in there. So it's a big problem.
So how can NSX address switching?
Okay, so here's the idea. The idea is that we can move the intelligence out of the physical network and into the hypervisor. So now the hypervisor knows about the switching, and when you create an application tier, it can automatically create the switching information necessary so that that tier can talk within itself.
Wow, that's powerful. And I also notice here that we have something that says hypervisor with NSX. And a lot of people say, VMware, hey, you've been a great company over the last decade, you have a great hypervisor. Are you now telling me this hypervisor includes an NSX hypervisor as well?
It's a hypervisor on steroids, you're right.
That's really powerful. That's one hell of a hypervisor. I like being a hypervisor company right now. So Kit, can we keep going and talk about routing? Because I know that at times, my virtual machines are on different IP subnets, so they have to go through a router. How do you address that with NSX?
Sure, NSX handles that. Again, let's talk about how routing works today. Just like with switching, you have a physical device you have to go and configure. So if you want to connect two application tiers, you have to update the routing tables in that physical router. But there's a bigger problem, that not only did it set it up like that, but then on an ongoing basis, traffic between two VMs on different subnets have to get routed through that central router. That can add a lot of latency and network congestion to your physical network.
Hey Kit, I told you I'm a pretty technical business leader. I know that's called hairpinning, and hairpinning's not good in networking.
Wow, that's impressive knowledge,
Yeah,
Carl.
you like that, Kit?
Displaying knowledge of facts rather than just your opinions.
Yeah,
I like it. I think we're getting
go.
somewhere. So yes, this is actually a big problem. And you're right, it adds traffic and latency, and worst of all, it reduces performance for your application.
Absolutely.
So how can NSX help with this? Well, just like with switching, we can move the intelligence for routing out of the hardware and into the hypervisor. Now when you create two application tiers and want them to talk to each other, it can be done automatically. And now you can even see that the routing is done intelligently. We make routing decisions at the host rather than at the physical router out there somewhere, which can significantly reduce things like hairpinning.
Yeah, so if we're reducing hairpinning, to me it looks like if we have to hit a router that's centralized in the network, if we take and now do that at the host itself, we'll reduce a significant amount of traffic that's going on the network.
Right.
How much traffic could that potentially decrease?
And that's a great question, because you might think to yourself, well, that's a nice feature, but how big is it? So it turns out a number of independent studies have confirmed that at least 70% of the traffic within a data center is just between machines in that data center. And that makes sense, right? Because if you get one packet into your application from the outside world, that has to go through your load balancer, your web server, your business logic tier, your database, and then all the way back. So that's like 10 or 20 packets just to respond to that single packet that came in. And those 10 or 20 packets are all going through that central router today. That's inefficient. And so you can have huge gains by being able to intelligently do routing point to point as we can.
My application could potentially now perform better because all the routing is taking place on the same host and VMs have to talk to one another.
Right.
That's great, Piet. But I have some other challenges as well, and I'm always quite concerned about network security. And can NSX and this new powerful network virtualization platform actually start to have impact or help performance from a network perspective?
Definitely.
Specifically security.
I know. Well, your app's going to be popular. I'm sure that people are going to try and hack it. So we need security. So just like with switching and routing, we can move the intelligence for the firewall and security out of the physical layer and into the hypervisor. Now this is really important because it's fundamentally a better way of doing security.
Yeah, so the security state is now set at the virtual machine and it doesn't have to go out to an external firewall in this case.
Right, so if we know a packet's going to be blocked, we can actually block it at the host. It never hits the wire. It never gives an intruder or someone trying to snoop on that packet the ability to pick it up. It's something that the networking guys call zero trust.
Yeah, I knew that.
Which I think is kind of the same level of trust that you have in IT there, Carl.
Actually, about 30 minutes in, I think our level of trust has gone up significantly. I really believe in you now.
Making progress.
Yeah, we definitely are. But one more question. I told you that this Project Vulcan is a very powerful application and a lot of people are going to want to get access to it. So I think we're going to need load balancing. Can we address load balancing with the NSX architecture?
Yeah. And again, not to spend too much time on it, but load balancing is the same concept. Just like with firewall, routing, and switching, we can move that intelligence into the hypervisor and automate it all for you.
Wow, Piet, that was a very powerful demo and a few set of slides that actually helps us better understand the power of NSX in network virtualization. And what we really saw there was the ability to not only provision a virtual machine in minutes, and move from this conventional world of networking where it takes days to get layer 2 through 7 services to now a world where we provision a virtual machine and all the network services all in minutes. That is extremely powerful.
Right, and we actually have to do that if you want a true self-service type of architecture.
That's great. Now, Kate, yesterday, Pat was up here with Martine, and we heard from 3 very large customers like GE, eBay, and Citigroup talking about how they will implement network virtualization and leverage the NSX architecture. Do you know of anyone who's actually doing this today across their entire data center?
Yeah, we do. We have a number of customers who have implemented NSX. Let's hear from one of them right now. Please roll the video.
My name is Richard Salto, and I work for WestJet Airlines, Canada's preferred exceptional guest experience at an affordable price. One of the problems that we found with our network is it was really well designed for what we call north-south traffic or client-server traffic, but it wasn't that well designed to
utilize that current investment in infrastructure as well as realize the vision we have for our security and networking in the data center.
I think software-defined networking is something that's going to be a major shift in the networking environment, and the fact that VMware is bringing that into their product line really shows that they're serious about their network virtualization and that they're thinking progressively about the future.
You can see it here. So now there's a couple of options for how we do this. First option, we can power off the VM and then power it back on, and when it powers on, it'll be on the new network.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Power off and power on.
I know if you power off, power on anything, it goes down. I don't like that option. There has to be another way.
Okay, no downtime. Okay, so we have a different solution. We can use vMotion.
vMotion? Did you say vMotion?
Yep.
vMotion is used to move one virtual machine from one physical machine to another. It has nothing to do with networking, Kate.
I know, but this works.
Really?
Yeah, let's check it out. So we're currently executing the vMotion. When this vMotion completes, the VM will now be on the new NSX network. There's no downtime. Moreover, there's no disruption. Because of the bridge, this VM can still talk to the VMs on the conventional VLAN network.
So wait, you use vMotion to take a virtual machine that was running on a VLAN and migrate it over to, if you will, NSX.
Right. As you can see here, it's actually, the new network is there now.
So really what you did is a B2B for networking.
Precisely.
Very good.
No
That's really good.
So it gets all the benefits of NSX, including elasticity, ease of management, performance, while at the same time being able to talk to your conventional VLAN network. So you get everything you want and no downtime.
That's great, Piet. So that's really exciting if now I'm virtualized. But as I said, I'm only 80% virtualized, so I still have some applications that are running on physical machines and physical networks. Is there a way to actually do a P2B and get on the NSX architecture as well?
Yeah, there is actually. So just how we saw with our virtual machine here, we can also connect a physical machine to an NSX logical network and get all the benefits of NSX for that physical machine.
So let's just step back and look at the takeaways from all of this NSX excitement that we brought here to Barcelona, Spain. Number one, the intelligence in the network is now all done through software. And because of this, we can get speed and we can get agility. And we're using the same operating model and principles that we did to deploy virtual machines for compute virtualization. And last but not least, everything we've talked about here today does not require an upgrade to your existing infrastructure. There is no rip and replace to have to get to network virtualization. This is extremely powerful, Kit.
I'm glad you're excited, Carl.
I'm really excited. But I also know, Kit, there's more to infrastructure than just networking. And in fact, one of the areas I always have concern about is storage, right? It's always cost me money. You're always saying it's going to cost this, that. You give me another bill. And really, I want to, before you tee up probably another demo for storage, I'd like to give you a few pointers on the dependencies my applications have. So first and foremost, like Project Vulkan, my applications need to get to market and they need to get to market fast. I need predictable performance out of storage for my applications, and I need to set an SLA that if it needs to scale, you can always guarantee me the SLA and the policy you set will be there and available. And last but not least, if that application scales, I want to understand the cost with storage as we scale out Project Vulkan.
Wow.
There are a lot of dependencies.
A lot of demands, I would say, actually.
I'm not that demanding, Kit, actually.
Okay, well, let's talk about this. So as you know, Carl, VMware has been in the business of storage innovations for many, many years. Most of you are familiar with all the innovations we have in vSphere. And yesterday, Pat talked about all the cool new innovations we're doing within the software-defined storage space. In particular for today, I'd like to talk a little bit about virtual SAN, since I think that'll address a lot of your concerns.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so what exactly is virtual SAN? Virtual SAN radically simplifies storage, and it does this by using all the direct attached storage from all the hosts in a cluster. It takes them and pools them together into a giant logical data store that's then available for all the VMs on that cluster to use. But the best thing about it is that virtual SAN is able to intelligently use both SSDs and spinning disks to allow you to get great performance while at the same time reducing costs.
Hold on a second. You're telling me now you can take advantage of local disk and flash that sit on servers today that typically aren't used in VMware virtualized environments.
Right. These disks are out there on the servers, but people aren't taking advantage of them yet.
Yeah, not at all. So now that's what virtual SAN does.
Right.
Okay, can we go in and see a demo of this?
Definitely. So let's check out the demo. Now, we're back here in the vSphere web client, and what we've done is selected a cluster that we want to enable virtual SAN on.
Okay.
What I want to show is how simple it is to enable this. It's just as easy as enabling DRS or HA. So we can just go over here, click on Edit,
Okay.
and then we check the checkbox, and hit OK. That's pretty much it.
And now we have virtual SAN.
Yeah, so what's happening is that while we're talking up here, virtual SAN is going off in the background and finding all those direct attached disks to our hosts, and then bringing them together to create our virtual SAN data store.
Wow, so through just a couple clicks, we were able to take advantage of that unused local disk and flash that exists on many of the hosts running VMware today.
Right, the key is to make it super simple to use.
Even I could have done that, but I noticed you did it in this case.
Even a business guy could do
Yeah,
that.
okay, very
That's our
good.
bar.
So Kit, that was quite impressive, but as you know, I keep telling you how popular my application is. How do we make this scalable?
Right, that's a good question. So let's actually go and check out this virtual SAN data store that we just created. So we can see it here, and whoa, look at that. Somehow it's almost been all the way used up. It's been like 3 seconds, dude, and your guys are already using it.
8,500 people wanted access to it.
It's crazy. I guess Project Vulkan might actually be popular. Okay, so we see there's an alarm here, meaning we're almost out of space. But luckily, it's really easy to extend the size of our virtual SAN data store. All we need to do is just add another host. You'll remember that virtual SAN uses all the direct attached storage from all hosts in the cluster. So if we add another host, it means we have more direct attached storage, and thus our virtual SAN data store can be bigger. So we're going through the workflow here of adding that host. And when that host is added, virtual SAN will automatically detect that and bring in that additional storage.
So basically, through a couple clicks again, you added a host to a cluster, which actually gave us more compute network capacity and now storage capacity.
Exactly.
Oh,
right.
Cool.
And on network capacity, because we're using NSX, we can make intelligent routing decisions and have that optimized network performance.
That's really powerful. That's great.
So let's go back and check out our data store now to see how it's doing. All right, look at that.
Storage.
So before it was almost completely full,
Yeah.
and now it's just about half full, or I guess half empty. I don't know what your outlook on life is.
I'm very optimistic on life, quite honestly. In this case, I'm going to be a pessimist because I know more people are going to come in, so it's half empty. It's going to fill up quickly.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, that's all there is to it. That's how simple it is.
So tell me a little bit more about the virtual SAN architecture and whether or not you can meet some of the resiliency needs I have in this application.
Okay. Right. So the question here is, look, you're using local disks. Local disks don't seem very resilient, right? You know, what's going on? And that's right. So what we have to do is build resiliency into the software, intelligence into our virtual SAN data stores. So what we do here is actually you can create policies to say, I want a certain number of copies of my virtual machine's data on different disks. So in this case, we've selected 2 copies. Again, simple case. Now I know you probably want 10 or something for redundancy. Well, how this works is that every time the virtual machine does a write, that write goes to both copies, or all the copies. And once that data has been written, it then sends the ACK back to the virtual machine. This ensures that if one of the disks were to go down, like we see here, there's still another copy of the data. Virtual SAN will detect that failure and automatically replicate that disk to ensure there's still 2 copies.
That's great. So you clearly have showed in a cluster we have resiliency, but what if a cluster or a data center were to go down? How do you help my application get back up and running?
That's a good question. So, well, first let me just fill out the rest of the slide. We can show the build here of the new write coming in, going to those new disks. But in terms of your question, you're saying, look, virtual SAN provides high availability within a cluster. What happens if my entire data center goes down? And that's a good question, because virtual SAN can't take care of that. So what we've done is extended virtual SAN with integration into vSphere replication to do disaster recovery scenarios to remote data centers. We've also integrated it with vSphere data protection to do backup and restore for virtual SAN data stores. So I think this should address your issues.
That's great. Virtual SAN is a powerful platform to extend infrastructure that's traditionally not being used in their data centers today.
So you're paying attention.
Yeah, very good. So what are a couple key takeaways from this demo? First and foremost, we were able now to set storage policy at time of virtual machine provisioning, no longer setting policies at the data store. And we actually were able to scale storage as we scaled compute and networking with NSX. And last but not least, as I said, we're able to not just extend, but we're able to leverage the unused capacity that most of you have today on your local disk and flash of your servers. And I'm sure, Piet, everybody wants access to this great code.
It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, it is. And as Pat said yesterday, at VMworld in San Francisco 6 weeks ago, we announced the availability of this in beta form. And all of you can now go and get access to this great technology, virtual SAN, by simply going to www.vsanbeta.com. Very, very good.
Do you feel better now? Have I answered all your questions?
Most of them. I am really confident that you know how to deliver a software-defined data center, from the provisioning of an application all the way through the infrastructure. But we all know that application is only as good as the users who get access to it. And I also know that the faster I get my users access to applications, the more productive they'll be. So there's a couple things that I need to be able to make my people more productive. And I want some of the same things that we just talked about from the application provisioning perspective. But let me start off and tell you what I really need. So first and foremost, I need my users to be able to collaborate in different ways, get access to data and files like they've never done in the past. And oh, by the way, they need access to applications, whether they're on-premise or potentially running in a SaaS environment. And all of this needs to be accomplished through any device I want to use. This is a device freedom world that we live in. The proliferation of devices, I want to use whatever I want. And oh, by the way, one last thing. I want to be able to do this in a very self-service manner. Just like I deployed applications, I want to be able to deploy my desktops.
That's a lot of needs. You want to pony with that? I mean, I'm doing miracles here. May as well
No,
try
a nice
something
thing will
else.
do after the demo, Kit. That's fine.
Okay.
So, Kit, do you have any dependencies or requirements?
Look.
These are mine.
Yeah, okay. Can I say something first of all? Because we in IT understand your concerns. I mean, we're end users too. We want the same things, right? But here's the issue. We got all these devices coming in. We got all this data everywhere. This is a crazy amount of stuff. So what we in IT need fundamentally is control. We need to be able to enforce our rules and policies to assert that control. And we need automation to do that automatically for us because honestly, we can't keep up with all these devices coming in. And we finally need to secure the endpoints so that our data and applications, we don't lose them.
So what we're talking about here is end user freedom with IT control.
That's what we want.
You're always in control, Kit.
Of course I am. I'm IT.
Okay, so let me see how I can actually now start to provision my own desktops and applications.
Right, let's take a look at a demo. So let's try to provision a virtual desktop for you. So the cool thing about a virtual desktop is it's obviously not tied to any physical device. You can pick up an iPad or a laptop or whatever it is and connect to this thing. So we're back here in vCloud Automation Center. And now what we want to do is provision that virtual desktop. And so we can see here there's a different set of options because we're logging in as an end user rather than as an application owner before. And again, we in IT have control over who sees what options.
So Kit, now you're telling me through vCloud Automation Center, not only can I provision applications, but as an individual, I can come into this portal and actually start to provision my desktops.
Precisely.
Wow.
So let's take a look. So we can see on the upper right-hand corner here, we have a desktop. Let's go select it and make a request to provision it. So just like before, we're provisioning Vulkan. There's a couple of pieces of info to type in. And now we get another choice here. What kind of storage profile do you want for this virtual desktop?
Am I provisioning my own desktop?
We're getting it for you.
I want gold.
Of course you do.
Of course.
You gotta
Always the best.
look out for number one. All right, so we're going to do gold. And then we can submit our request. And that's it. Previously, if you wanted a virtual desktop, you had to file a ticket, wait a few days, and that could obviously impact productivity. Now if you need a desktop, we can go to this one place, click a few buttons, and get it provisioned for you automatically in just seconds.
That's great, Kit. But let me tell you a little bit about my users. They are truly power users. And I like this whole notion of self-service portal to get access to desktops, but I want to understand whether or not VDI can meet the requirements of the power user that I have, for example, in my developer community.
Right, that's a great question. Let's take a look at that.
That's great.
So the reality is that we've been working on Horizon View and adding innovations there every year, year after year. We've been expanding the scope of use cases and applications that can run inside of a VDI environment. The reality now is that VDI is mainstream. We've reduced costs to that on par of a physical machine. We've also decreased complexity by making it easier to deploy and configure, by being able to start up thousands of virtual desktops in just a matter of minutes. And we've also enhanced the user experience through things like protocol improvements, SSDs, so on and so forth. And finally, just what Pat announced yesterday, desktop as a service. A totally different way to deliver virtual desktops that gives you more flexibility and choice.
So you're telling me there is no reason at all not to be able to deploy VDI across the enterprise, even for power users?
Exactly. The idea here is that if you look at what we've done with vSphere 5.5, you can now run any application in a virtualized environment without fear of a performance penalty. We find the exact same thing with VDI, where you can now run any app you want.
Okay, great. So Kit, that's great, so I can get access to desktops, but if I have a desktop and I can't get access to applications, what good is a desktop? So how can I start to get some of the same self-service capabilities for accessing my applications that you just showed me for the desktop?
Right, so let's check out another demo here. So what we're looking at here is a product called Horizon Workspace. Horizon Workspace is the one place you can go to access all your applications and data on any device. So you can see here all the different apps that IT has allowed you to access.
So this is me logging in the morning, and these are all the applications now I can gain access to.
Right, and we in IT have full control over this. Just like vCloud Automation Center, we can specify what applications you have access to. We have SaaS apps, web apps, thin apps, Zen apps, mobile apps. Everything's right here for you to access. But the best part is the simplification of it. It makes your life so much easier because now you log into one place and all your apps are right there just one click away. There's no need to remember URLs or passwords or anything else. It's It's all just one-click access.
Now, through single sign-on, I can get access to all of my applications, and I don't have to go to the back of my book and look up all my passwords any longer.
Right, you write down your passwords?
I do. Sorry, Kit. I'm not as smart as you. You're an engineer. With that being said, Kit, you know, I see one application here, quite honestly, that I'm not sure that I can get access to because I run a native Mac. And there's one application here called OneNote, and I know OneNote can't run on a native Mac. How's it going to work in Horizon now?
Right, there is no copy of OneNote that runs natively on a Mac.
It doesn't work.
Well, but it's listed here, so let's click on it and see what happens.
That's my question.
So, okay, again, one-click access, no password, no URL, no nothing. We just click on it, and now it's launching. There it goes.
Ah, this is all my data.
Yeah, it's your stuff right here.
So through my Mac, I'm getting access to OneNote.
Yep.
And this is taking place, if I look up in the left-hand corner, through something called Centric's Viewer. So are you telling me now we're actually running Zen app, and it's being delivered through Horizon?
The point here is to give you flexibility and choice, and that some applications aren't written for certain devices or platforms. And so the idea is we want to be able to deliver any app to any device. And so yes, we now support running Zen apps and piping them through Horizon Workspace, so you have the freedom of choice that you want.
That's a feature and function that our customers have been asking us for a long time, and I'm sure you're all excited to see us being able to actually accept requests from the Zen app, you know, streaming video in this case, or in this case, OneNote application to me. That's a really good Kit. But I have another question for you, Kit. I just recently went to the Mac store.
Apple Store?
Apple Store. Mac store. And guess what I got? Look at that thing. I got a new iPhone. An iPhone 5S. Is that pretty?
You know there's no actual phone right there, right?
This is a demo, Kit. Go with it.
Okay.
Look at that 5S.
So you got yourself a 5S. Let me guess. Did you get a gold one?
Actually, I got a yellow one.
Dude, it doesn't come in yellow.
They special ordered it for me, Kit.
I think they gave you a 5C and charged you an extra $100 in the car.
So I want to be able to use my iPhone to get access to all these applications just like I did my desktop.
Yeah, and irrespective of what your phone is, whether it's a C or S or whatever, the point is that yes, Horizon Workspace can give you access to your applications from that device.
That's great. So let's look at a couple takeaways from this last demo. So first and foremost, we have self-service access and provisioning, not just of desktops, but also of our applications. And we also now, through policy and automation, we can be sure that you have security, compliance, and control.
Right, and that's the big thing for us, is that we need to stay in control, and this allows us to do that. It allows us to wrap our arms around all these devices coming in, and all this data proliferating everywhere.
Kit, I tell you, I'm really impressed with you and what IT can do for the line of business. And I must say, I stand here today completely confident that you can deploy the software-defined data center and give me access to both applications and desktops very easily. Awesome. Thanks for your time today, Kit.
Whoa there, Tiger. Hold on a second.
Tiger?
You're not getting rid of me that quickly.
Where'd Tiger come from?
It's a figure of speech. Look.
Kit, that wasn't in the rehearsal.
I've just been thinking a little bit about that video that you showed when I first came out.
I don't recall.
Of course, how convenient. Well, it's just what you guys in the business thought of us in IT. And I thought it was only appropriate that we in IT, and by we in IT I mean my 8,000 friends and me, show you line of business guys what we think of you.
Well, why would you do that? I thought we liked each other.
You guys are so demanding. You're never happy. You're so ridiculously specific with every request you have.
I don't buy it, Kit.
Let's roll the video.
What can I get you?
I want the number 3.
I'd like the chef salad, please, with the oil and vinegar on the side, and the apple pie a la mode.
Chef and apple a la mode.
But I'd like the pie heated, and I don't want the ice cream on top. I want it on the side, and I'd like strawberry instead of vanilla if you have it. If not, then no ice cream, just whipped cream, but only if it's real. If it's out of a can, then nothing.
Not even the pie?
No, just the pie, but then not heated. What?
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 Kit, come on. I'm not that demanding.
You're not?
Listen, I'm not that difficult to deal with. Just because I don't like my food to touch and I use divider plates doesn't make me difficult to work with.
Carl, look, you are demanding, but you know what? You keep us in IT, you keep us honest.
Kit, thanks for the partnership and great job today.
Thanks a lot, Carl.
Thank you very much. So in the first half of our demo today, what we saw Joe made it look so, I'm sorry, Piet made it look so easy, but tell me why it's so complex to manage or operate IT today.
Okay, so I worked in operations for the first part of my career, and let me tell you what it's like. Okay?
I'd love to hear about it, Joe.
What you have is silos, right? So you have the networking guys, the storage guys, the compute guys, the server guys, the security guys in the corner with their special hats, and all the other teams that knows what it's doing. I can just tell you that it fixes itself. Is that okay?
No, I want to see it.
All right, okay, so let's show you. So this time we'll go and look in vCloud Application Directory. And if you look in vCloud Application Directory, at the top there you see the little spinny picture. Okay, great.
You know what that is?
If we now go and look behind the curtain in Operations Manager, you'll see here what's actually going on.
Okay.
And you'll see that graph on the right there. We're going to do. So you've crossed the dynamic threshold there. Now the important thing about dynamic thresholds is it was set automatically by the system. It monitored what the application normally did, and it said, oh, we stepped outside of that. There's an anomaly, which is what's showing up.
So basically it's watching the application and its performance, and it proactively detects if something's about to happen in the infrastructure.
Yeah, and it said, we've got an issue, and it's taking action and auto-scaling based on that. And if we look even further in here, we drill in, you'll see down here, it should come up on the bottom right, that the request going up, the request per minute has gone up through the roof, right? Because of your fabulous Project Vulcan, which is amazing.
You were listening while you were back.
Yeah, I was listening, not just on Twitter the whole time. So that was cool. So really, the whole point here is that we've made it all automatic, right? Though there's all this stuff going on behind the covers that we can look at if we want to. But if we go ahead and do that, you'll now see that in your vCloud Automation Center, there's an inbox tab, and if you go there, there's a mail.